Okay, let's take a look here at the guidelines for the nonverbal paper. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to go out and observe a small group of people between 2 and 4 individuals. So it can be a pair of people or a small group up to 4. You are not to be a member of this group, you are just to observe them from a distance. You might be at a close distance or at a further distance. You can either hear some of the conversation or between the people you're observing, or maybe not. Either way, hopefully you'll be able to get enough nonverbal information to write your paper. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the instructions. These are the same written instructions that you find on the handout. So for this assignment, focus basically on content from Chapter 6, as you can imagine, and then tie that into your written work and your observations. So this assignment will consist of 2 main parts. For the fieldwork portion of this assignment, be sure to focus on the nonverbal behaviors or nonverbal forms of communication of the group of individuals that you're observing. Make sure the group of individuals is somewhere between 2 and 4 people, no more than 4, obviously no less than 2. You can observe whoever you like. They can be people you know or complete strangers. It's up to you. Just make sure that the people you're observing don't know that you're observing them during the observation process. If you want to tell them after you've already completed all of your notes, that's perfectly fine. But if they know that you're observing them during the process, they might not act naturally. While you observe the people that you're noticing or you're paying attention to, also try and pay attention to factors like, are they male or female? What is their approximate age? How are they dressed? Can you guess pretty accurately what type of relationship they might have? Are they friends? Do you think they might be married? Do you think they might be co-workers? Those sorts of things. Also pay attention to the situation or the setting, such as where are they? Are they in a restaurant? Are they at the airport? What are they doing? What time of day is it? Is it lunchtime? Is it in the evening? And so on. In addition to writing down your notes about the nonverbal behaviors, also think about your interpretation of what those behaviors mean as they are related to terms and concepts from Chapter 6. Note that your main job is to identify and describe the nonverbal behaviors and then relate what those behaviors mean, anchoring them to terms and concepts from the chapter. The second part of this assignment is writing the paper. Since this is an academic paper, it's very important to focus on grammar, sentence construction, spelling, those sorts of things. The paper itself should be 3 to 4 pages long. Obviously it needs to be typed. It must be typed in a 12-point font such as Times New Roman or a similar font. If it's a font that only fits a small number of characters per line, there's a chance that your paper might not be long enough if it doesn't have enough words on it. In other words, don't try and use a big font and fill 3 pages with it when if it were converted to Times New Roman, it would only be 2 or 2.5 pages long. Okay, when I say 3 full pages, obviously I mean 3 full pages from top to bottom. If it's any less than that, you will not be able to receive full credit for it. So in your paper, describe the nonverbal behaviors, reflect upon the meaning of those nonverbal behaviors, and then relate that to the chapter, relate that to terms and concepts from the chapter, and cite page numbers where relevant. Okay, like I mentioned, it should be double-spaced in a 12-point font using Times New Roman or similar. Please staple your papers together or paperclip them. 1 point will be deducted if they're not paperclipped or stapled. Use standard margins and headings. The default margins, the default headers in Microsoft Word are just fine. Please number your pages, and at the top of the first page put your name, class name, and section number on it. If you want to put a cover page on top of it, that's fine, although obviously the cover page won't count towards your 3-page minimum. As you write your paper, obviously think about the nonverbal messages mentioned in Chapter 6 and how they relate and how they may relate to other factors related to or pertaining to interpersonal communication. You might you might reflect back on some other chapters such as perception or how the nonverbal behaviors might relate it to intercultural communication or to verbal communication, listening, and so on. We've already covered the perception chapter, so if you notice anything that might relate to perceptions, you might briefly mention that in your paper. Okay, so once again, in summary, here's the gist of what I'd like you to focus on. Observe one pair or a small group of individuals between 2 and 4 people in one setting. Don't observe these people over a day. You know, you see them in the morning and then maybe you see them later in the afternoon. Focus on just one setting. In other words, they sit down or they're interacting with each other for a period of time, and all of your observations are focused on that one unit or that one period. Make sure you are not a member of the group. You are only observing them, noticing their nonverbal behaviors. If you want, you might be close enough to hear some of what they are saying, but if not, that's okay as well. Interpret the meaning of the nonverbal behaviors you observed, and then you write a paper 3 to 4 pages long describing their nonverbal behaviors, interpreting what they mean, referring back to the chapter, focusing on terms and concepts, citing relevant page numbers where appropriate. Also watch for grammar and sentence construction and spelling. Don't type paragraphs longer than 3/4 of a page long, because really long paragraphs become difficult for the reader to follow along. Paragraphs usually average about a half a page in length, give or take. So if you have a paragraph that's longer than 3/4 of a page, please break it up into 2 smaller paragraphs. And also, please don't separate paragraphs with a blank space or a blank line between them. Just when you start a new paragraph, use the tab space to indent about 5 characters or whatever the standard default. Just press tab and then start typing your new paragraph. Hopefully this will give you enough information to get started on your paper. Also refer to the written instructions handed out in class and are also downloadable from Blackboard. Good luck, and I look forward to reading your papers when you turn them in.